Okay, we're going to get on with our program. Would Dr. Puckering please come to the stage, please? No, Michael Moore.
One of the journeys that we're on, if I can get your attention for a moment. One of the journeys that we're on is to disrupt the conversation about healthcare. We're about disruption. We're about sort of repositioning us for the 21st century. We're about looking at how can we bring these 32 million Americans who are about to get healthcare into a healthcare system that is sensitive, that is, I would use the word self-aware, so that it anticipates those new consumers before they know that they are going to have some need of healthcare. The model and the frame of reference for me has been Walmart. Walmart was disruptive. Walmart began understanding its customer before its customer hit the front door, so that when its customer hit the front door in real time, they could provide them with the services and products that they need, and they didn't have to store endless reams of materials in warehouse, and they saved resources. That's what we're about in healthcare. So we had an opportunity to do a project with Microsoft, with Johnson & Johnson on childhood obesity. We were asked to map at the zip code level where children reside who are suffering from obesity, whose lives were ultimately going to be shortened, whose cost of healthcare was going to increase, and Johnson & Johnson was going to use that data to put programs into schools to begin to avoid those events. And the company that they were working with was Microsoft. So we had the opportunity at that moment, and Arissa Cunningham, I don't know if she's here tonight, Arissa may have understood more about, yes she is. Arissa, I always thought Arissa had a plan here. She knew more than we understood, that bringing us together with Microsoft was the perfect opportunity. And so we started a conversation with Microsoft about doing just that, about building a 21st century healthcare system in which we were in real time going to anticipate people before they had that heart attack, so that we could intervene and reduce acute events. That's how you drive down healthcare costs. All that other stuff that members are doing right now, excuse me, and I know there are a bunch of them here, but that's 20th century stuff. We want to get into the 21st century. We want to know our customer before our customer knows they need us, so that we can provide them the care. The head of the Health and Life Science Division of Microsoft is a gentleman named Michael Robinson. And we set that before him and said, here's what we want to do. We want to start off with a national clinical trial network. We want to start collecting data. Can we partner to do this? And I'm excited to tell you that the answer was yes. I'm excited to tell you that Microsoft, more than we understood about how to use big data to solve problems. So it is really a tremendous pleasure and honor to introduce you to Michael Robinson, General Manager of Health and Life Science at Microsoft.
what an introduction. Thank you, Gary. I really appreciate that. And Gary is very modest. He truly is the visionary in this partnership. And so we're just along for the ride, Gary, and we appreciate your leadership and vision. Good evening. First of all, I'd like to say it's a pleasure to speak tonight at this annual Health Disparities Award dinner. I'm delighted to be here this evening and to partner with Gary and the National Minority Quality Forum, and frankly, all of you who are on the front lines working to accomplish our shared goal of improving the quality of health care for all. But I would also like to acknowledge and congratulate again Congresswoman Christensen for her leadership on this topic. And all the members in attendance tonight. We really appreciate your leadership and vision on this. Some of you may be thinking, what is the connection between Microsoft and health? But over a decade ago, Microsoft committed to investing in healthcare as an industry. Our vision is simple: to improve health around the globe through technology and software innovation. We did so because we envisioned software and the internet as essential tools that could transform healthcare as they have so many other industries, opening new ways of working, new ways of communicating, and new economies. Since then, we have steadily increased our investment and commitment to health globally. We have over 2,000 employees at Microsoft dedicated to the health industry. I believe we are approaching a tipping point to measurably improve health value and access, to break down health disparities. During our time together, I'd like to share some of that perspective with you on why I believe this is important, and I will speak to the convergence of three factors that create this opportunity for us. It's about technology innovation, consumer engagement, and public and private collaboration. Much of my perspective has come from forums that we've convened nationally on public and private innovation to identify and disseminate healthy community models that measurably improve health outcomes, and a picture paints 1,000 words. So let me show you this brief video that demonstrates this type of collaboration led by one of our strategic partners, Johnson & Johnson. Please roll the video.
Gateway to a Healthy Community is Johnson & Johnson's effort to address healthcare disparities, particularly in the area of childhood obesity and diabetes.
Well, I think when it comes to the majority of the American youth, there is reason to be concerned.
Innovation is a key component of the work that we're doing with the Gateway to a Healthy Community project. Innovation has enabled us to look at things differently as we address the problems of childhood obesity and diabetes.
Teachers in the classroom, even in the absence of a formal physical education program, demonstrate that they can help children to be physically active, and that in the process they can improve the classroom environment. So the Johnson & Johnson program, the Gateway program, allows teachers to, if you will, take time out to have children to be physically active. And what they found, of course, is that not only does this benefit the behavior of children, it also benefits learning.
Most recently, we've joined hands with Microsoft to really identify how we can digitize curriculum and make sure that we can track, measure, and in many ways kind of progress towards our goals as a result of digitization.
I don't think I understate it when I say that it was a transformational moment when this program went to the cloud. Being in the cloud, being on Azure, and being able to interact with teachers and get real-time results and feedback really was turning on the lights to the potential and the power of this program. Individuals could essentially download whatever they wanted to, when they wanted to, very quickly, without delay. And that's one of the benefits of the Azure cloud platform, because the demand is real time, and we only consume the demand that we need to demand. There really is never any problem or delay. At a high level, I think the technical benefits are reliability, scalability, the ability to get insight into usability and how much data is being put through the system. And those business benefits really impact success, which is behavior, behavioral change in the Gateway to Healthier Community objectives. We want to see sustainability and frequency of usage.
And so the goal of J&J is to reach over 3 million children in the next 3 years. And so the cloud platform allows them to have that access and to scale. Microsoft and Johnson & Johnson have had a long-standing strategic partnership, and the Gateway to Healthy Communities and the Healthier Kids initiatives are just one great example of how we can partner
with our customers to make sure that technology helps meet their business needs and objectives.
We can make a significant difference in improving the lives of many. When we start in communities where we have significant alignment with key partners, key stakeholders, we can make a dramatic impact on improving the outcomes for many people.
This partnership allows us not only to showcase our technology, not only to strengthen our partner with Johnson & Johnson, but also have real impact in our communities.
We are grateful to join hands with extraordinary partners who, with their help, allow us to really focus on where the critical need is and find the solutions that are necessary to eliminate healthcare disparities.
Thank you. Thank you. You know, the results of this program have been extraordinary. In its first year of implementation, more than 50,000 school children, grades K through 3, in more than 2,000 classrooms have logged more than 700,000 hours of age-appropriate cardio exercise and burned more than 150 million calories. Looking at this model, I believe that we're at a precipice that we can begin to see a roadmap to remove health disparities. We will soon see the extension of health coverage to tens of millions of people, and Price Waterhouse compares the newly insured to those who are currently insured and finds a dramatic increase in the percentage of African Americans and Hispanics covered, an increase in the number of people with a high school degree or less, an increase in those who work part-time or who are unemployed, and finally, and most significantly, an increase of those with poor health. The data underscores that health disparities are inextricably linked to education and economic opportunity. Expanding access in the face of cost pressures is disrupting the status quo and reshaping the market as we know it today. We are transitioning to value-based financing, care collaboration, and patient engagement models that are emerging across the industry. Enterprises are modifying their business models. Companies such as CVS and Walgreens are implementing curbside consult and minute clinics. Hospitals are extending delivery care models further into the community. Integrated care networks like Kaiser Permanente are being emulated. Payers, providers, life sciences, and governments are finding an overlap of interest in solutions like medication adherence to reduce the high cost of hospitalization. These efforts, however, alone will not be enough to break the disparities. When you add to the mix two other powerful dynamics, technology, innovation, and an engaged consumer, there's an opportunity for real progress. Consider this. At the same time millions of diverse citizens will be obtaining health coverage, they will also be adopting consumer technologies that connect them to the internet, web applications, and social media. Smartphone penetration in the U.S. has more than doubled to 50% in just a few years. For those who do not yet own one, someone in their immediate family likely does. This crosses all demographics, and it also creates the need for access to information. So in the past, the consumer has little impact on price, quality, or the design of healthcare services. This is dramatically starting to change as employers pass more health costs onto their employees. So as a result, we're more careful about how we use and utilize our health services. Let me give you a few examples of collaboration and models that are having a real impact. We talk about chronic disease. We have we saw a profound effect on spending, mortality, and workforce productivity. Diabetes and heart disease are pervasive among diverse populations, and 47% of that population has at least one chronic disease. Consider the work of our host, the National Minority Quality Forum, which leverages data and analytics to map the incidence of chronic diseases to the zip code level. And Gary and his team point out that 70% of the minority population lives in just 4,500 zip codes, or less than 12% of the zip codes in the country. They map prevalence of diabetes, heart disease, and obesity, and providers by zip code by population. So we know which communities are facing the greatest challenges, and this information is essential to our policy leaders, business providers, families, and communities as we target very scarce resources. We can make breakthroughs leveraging data analytics and cloud technologies to improve research and efficacy of treatments. Minority populations are severely, underrepresented in clinical trials. If we're going to provide safe, effective treatment, this has to be resolved. I applaud the National Minority Quality Forum and the work they're doing to develop a national clinical trial network that will aggregate minority health data and drive collaboration among health providers and the pharmaceutical industry to measurably improve recruitment and retention of diverse populations in clinical trials. This work is absolutely essential to meeting the goals of our triple aim. We welcome the collaborating in these efforts to improve both individual and population health. Let's turn to access to care in the face of primary care workforce shortage. There are two facts that cannot be denied. First is that there will be more people requiring care, an over 52% increase in patients, and a mere 2% increase in primary care physicians over the next 2 decades. We want to combat health disparities, and we're going to have to strengthen our core institutions. A majority of the minority and diverse populations are served by approximately 500 hospitals. Just 500 hospitals many of these hospitals are safety net hospitals, which are grappling with cuts in disproportionate share payments. They lack the resources to implement sophisticated health record systems, but they have data that is essential to improving population health and to reducing fraud and abuse and to garnering research support. Solutions that can leverage the data and apply analytics can help reduce spending, enhance research capabilities, and in some instances generate new revenue for those hospitals. Finally, I would like to talk about the challenge that we must meet to keep many of our customers in these diverse populations engaged in tracking and managing their health care. Those who have faced a history of health disparities and have often misunderstood or mistrusted that system, this challenge can be exacerbated as millions adopt mobile technologies and enter a brave new world of social media, where communications that they share with their family, friends, and peers may in turn be widely distributed over the internet. And as new consumers who can choose health products and services, they will be widely marketed to. It's imperative that we look at these communities. It's imperative that businesses and communities, educators, and the technology industry support them as they navigate these new care models and the limitations to the privacy of information that they share socially over the internet. It is also incumbent on the technology industry to make concrete steps to underscore its commitment to consumer privacy and security. Too often, compliance with laws such as HIPAA are seen as the ceiling for IT companies' commitment to ensuring privacy. Some information technology companies may interpret laws and regulations in a manner that gives them the broadest latitude to reuse information for advertising or other secondary purposes. I believe that we should consider legal compliance as the floor and not a ceiling to our commitment to health information privacy. Individual patients and the insured have a valid and justifiable expectation of trust that when a doctor, clinic, or insurance company transmits, discloses, or stores their personal data with an organization, that organization has a steadfast commitment to not use that data to analyze or mine that data for any secondary commercial purpose. There should be a transparent commitment that the industry will protect and secure this type of data in a manner that we would want our most sensitive and confidential data to be protected. Microsoft is committed to that value. Privacy is our priority. In closing, let me say, with a commitment to new partnerships, new models of care, technology innovation, and consumer engagement, we should be bullish on the opportunity to reduce health disparities. Through public and private collaboration, through the persistent partnerships of those in this room, we can make real progress. I look forward to that continuing collaboration, and thank you for being here and your commitment. Thank you very much.
Thank you for those remarks, Mr. Robertson. Thank you. Those are very insightful. Is everybody having a good time? How was your dinner? Dessert come yet? Don't eat it. We saw those videos yesterday. As Dr. Pucker makes his way to the stage, we're going to introduce our next speaker, Mr. John Castellani.
So we've talked to you about how we can identify the patients who need health care. We can anticipate their needs before they even show up at the hospital door, because guess what? We want to keep them out of the hospital door. But here's a message that I think is profoundly important to deliver. We need new technology when it comes to managing healthcare. One of the things that is profoundly important is that we have to innovate. We are not going to manage healthcare in the 21st century with 20th century technology. One of the things that I scratch my head about all the time is that we have a world-class pharmaceutical system in this country that we demonize every day. It's profoundly important that particularly the minority community, which is going to be the consumers of that information and technology in the 21st century, begin to build strong ties and relationships with the companies that are going to pioneer new technology so we can reduce those acute events. I've been pleased with the conversations that we've been having with PhRMA about the building of a national clinical trial network, and I'm excited that the head of PhRMA, John Castellani, is here with us this evening to talk about the work that they're doing in the area of clinical trials and minority health.
Thank you, and thanks for the kind introduction. Congresswoman, let me add my voice to the ones that you've heard before in congratulating you on your honor. And to Dr. Davidson, congratulations to you. Both are remarkable achievements. I also want to congratulate the Congressional Black Caucus Braintrust and the National Minority Quality Forum on this year's terrific leadership summit. The conference program is a wonderful way to celebrate 10 years of this great event. The speakers and the panelists all did an excellent job of highlighting some of the disease and disability challenges facing African Americans and other minorities. They also put a very needed spotlight on the serious disparities that sadly continue to exist in our healthcare system. One clear message that emerged from the summit was this: ending disparities and solving the urgent health problems facing African Americans and other minorities requires a coordinated effort, an effort that includes every one of the key elements of America's healthcare system. And so this evening I'm going to talk about one critically important part of the solution, and that is the valuable role that medicines can play. If we look over just the past 2 decades, we can see the profound effects that innovative medicines have had on the health of all Americans. Just to cite a few examples, the death rate for heart disease declined 30% between 1998 and 2009. A similar story is for cancer, where death rates have declined 20% between 1999 and 2006. But perhaps the most dramatic example is almost certainly HIV/AIDS. Most of the people in this room can remember all too well the days when the diagnosis of HIV was a death sentence. Today, thanks to new medicines, that diagnosis usually means a chronic disease, and death rates from AIDS have declined by 70% since 1995. And of course, this turning of the tide of HIV has a special resonance for the African American community. As you heard at the 2 summit sessions today, African Americans bear the most severe burden of HIV of all of the racial and ethnic groups in the nation. The dramatic progress of recent years is very good news, but the best news is that it may be just the tip of the iceberg. Around the world right now, there are more than 5,000 new drugs that are in development, and some 70% of them have the potential to be first-in-class medicines. This means they could be breakthroughs that help treat diseases for which no effective medicine now exists, or they could help patients who now don't respond to current medicines. These new medicines in the pipelines include many that could make a huge difference in the fight against diseases that hit the African American community especially hard. For example, in the last 2 days, you've heard a lot about the challenge of diabetes, and I wouldn't be surprised if you hear more. Obviously, you heard more from Dr. Davis, who was honored tonight. You are all too familiar with statistics like this. For every 6 white Americans who have diabetes, 10 African Americans have the disease. So it's especially good news that as we meet here this evening, there are more than 280 diabetes medicines that are in development. It's a very similar story for cancer. While every family worries about the dreaded disease, by almost any measure, the African American community again bears the biggest burden. According to the American Cancer Society, African Americans have the highest mortality rate of any racial or ethnic group for all cancers combined. Medical researchers have taken up the challenge. In 2011, 2 new personalized medicines developed by biopharmaceutical researchers for lung cancer and for melanoma received FDA approval. They are now helping patients. And there are more than 1,000 other medicines that are now moving forward to take on this horrible disease. There are also many promising medicines in the research pipeline to treat cardiovascular disease, asthma, sickle cell, and other conditions. In short, medical innovation is playing a vitally important role in reducing healthcare disparities today. But as Gary said, what about tomorrow? In the future, I believe that innovative medicines can help achieve what we all want, and that is bringing these disparities to an end. For medical innovation to achieve this role, 2 things have to happen. First, innovation must be combined with initiatives like those that have been discussed here over the last few days. But in addition, medical innovation must continue to fill the pipeline with promising new medicines and treatments so that breakthroughs can make it all the way from the laboratory to the patient. And unfortunately, that kind of medical innovation doesn't happen automatically. In fact, it depends on 4 pillars, 4 key factors that nurture the kind of progress that the nation, and especially America's minority populations, need. Those pillars are, first, a thriving scientific infrastructure that is supporting in both the private and public sectors. Secondly, a business environment that inspires and rewards smart taking risk and investment in that risk. Third, a modern and transparent regulatory system that evolves with the science to get safe medicines to patients more quickly. And fourth, an environment where innovative medicines are properly valued. Those 4 pillars are interdependent. But in the next couple of minutes, I just want to talk about the value pillar, because that's where the innovation faces some of its most pressing issues. When it comes to the economics of healthcare in America, the focus in recent years has been overwhelmingly on the short-term costs of medicine and not on the long-term value. In part, this is due to the incentives in our health reimbursement system. Medicines currently constitute a little more than 10% of the total health spending, yet they account for upwards of 40% of what the average patient spends out of pocket for health care each year. Moreover, insurance systems are much more willing to cover the costs of expensive acute services than they are for the medicines that would help avoid the need for those services. And the differences in the costs are stunning. With diabetes, for example, if the disease is uncontrolled, it can lead to dangerous complications, including amputations, kidney failure, heart attack, and stroke. The average cost of amputation surgery is $40,000. A single year of dialysis for kidney failure runs about $83,000. But a year's supply of medicines that can help control diabetes averages around $2,400. More than the cost, however, it is unquestionably better for patients to treat and control their diabetes than to amputate or to endure endless dialysis. Our leaders and the way we look at the system are also in part to blame for the focus on these short-term costs and neglecting the long-term value of medicines and treatment. For example, the University of Chicago study found that reducing cancer death rates by 10% would be worth roughly $4.4 trillion in economic value to current and future generations. However, suppose researchers were able to develop new treatments that could dramatically reduce the cancer death rate, and suppose that cost $1 billion, or $2 billion, or $3 billion. What would we focus on? The $2 or $3 billion a year that it might cost for that treatment, or the $4.4 trillion that we would be saving and adding to our economy? You can bet it'll probably be, in this environment, the $2 or $3 billion. That's a problem, and it's a big problem. And by their nature, innovators incur short-term costs in the hope of uncertain long-term rewards. The preoccupation that we have with short-term costs and the neglect of the long-term value discourages the risk-taking on which medical innovation depends. Now, I'm happy to say that there are some recent positive developments in this area. Our friends at the Congressional Budget Office, CBO, recently updated its methodology for calculating the costs of Medicare policies. It now reflects the positive effects of prescription medicines on total medical costs. CBO will, for the first time, account for the savings from medicines that reduce the need for other costly medical services like hospitalizations, acute care, and long-term care. Now, I hope this is a small change, that this very small change is the start of a trend. And it's a trend, and it's something Congresswoman Christensen has been trying to get accomplished for a long time. But it will be, if it is a trend, one of the catalysts that help keeps medical innovation going strong. Americans' biopharmaceutical companies want to ensure that every patient, from every ethnic group and every economic condition, gets the treatments that he or she needs. If we can resolve the cost-value problem, if we can keep all four pillars of medical innovation strong, then medical research can accomplish exactly that. Of course, we can't do it alone. We need improved education and outreach, more prevention and wellness programs, better healthcare delivery systems, more accessible treatment programs, and improved reimbursement programs. Since the end of the 20th century, medical innovation has made a tremendous difference in people's lives in a very short period of time. Working together, we can ensure that the 21st century is not only an era of research breakthroughs, but of better health care and better health outcomes for all Americans. Thank you.
Thank you for your remarks, Mr. Castellani. And when you talk about diabetes, you're talking about something very close to my heart, because my teammate at Ohio State and Oakland Raider Jack Tatum had a leg amputated due to diabetes, and which led to his kidney failure, which led to him having a massive heart attack in a hospital, and he died a few years ago. So when you talk about diabetes, this is something that we should really, really take in and think about it and try to correct these problems. Dr. Puckering, you're going to be up here again introducing our next speaker.
One of the things that we do every year at the summit, I take a point of privilege in doing this. We like to look even further into the frontier of knowledge to get some sense of where we're going, why we're going there, and what are the forces that drive us. I have, for the next speaker, been a great admirer of his work. First time I met him was this evening, but I, thanks to YouTube, have listened to his lectures. I have read his books, and he is one of the Americans who are living at the frontier of knowledge. Dr. Seth Lloyd is at MIT. His expertise is in quantum computing, And you might ask, so what does quantum computing have to do with minority health? And I would say to you, it has everything to do with minority health. And so I think you're about to fasten your seatbelts and don't just put it around your lap. You may need to put it around your shoulder and get yourself harnessed to take a peek into the deepest part of the 21st century, Dr. Seth Lloyd.
Thank you very much, Gary. Thank you very much, Gary. It's a great pleasure a relief, I should say, to come down from Boston to such a joyous and optimistic occasion. Many of my own personal heroes are in this room. Many of my own personal heroes are here in this room. And the other thing is that when I normally, as a scientist, normally my posture when I come down to Washington is I have to wear, roofer's knee pads, because going around to the NSF and DARPA and places like that. So today I'm going to tell you, this indeed will be, I'm actually not so sure what this has to do with diabetes, but I will try to make connections as we go along. So we have our PowerPoint slides up here. This, I'm afraid, for my colleague Michael from Microsoft, I actually believe that PowerPoint is a tool of Satan. There are no bullet points in the Bible. He is disagreeing. So this is my idea. Great, thank you. This will be better. Great. Yeah.
Okay. 2 years ago, we had this talk. When these gentlemen are talking like this man is going to dispense some really good information. So let's show our best foot forward and show our manners and let them talk and not let you talk, okay?
I think that's an optimistic view of what I'm going to tell you. You might actually just want to pay attention to your dessert instead. So as Gary said, I work on quantum computers. These are computers where you store bits of information on individual atoms. One purpose of this is, of course, to make better and more powerful computers. But in the process of studying this, I've learned a bit about how the universe is put together. And in fact, how the universe essentially is programmed. So tonight I'd like to tell you about how the universe is programming. So it's no secret that we're in the middle of an information processing revolution, right? Actually, this is out of date because now everybody is actually, I see them all texting on their iPhones right now. You have computers, you have iPhones, iPods, you have fiber optic cables, which take information in, out, based on photons. And it's really changed our lives a lot. I mean, actually, I think it's a bit overrated. When I saw in Popular Mechanics said the iPhone was the most amazing invention of the last 150 years, I thought that was a bit exaggerated. And indeed, this is an amazing information processing revolution. And if you look inside these computers, you find that there are bits. A bit is the smallest chunk of information, a distinction between yes, no, true, false, 0 and 1, capacitor charged, capacitor uncharged, magnetic poles pointing up, pointing down, no pulse of light is a 0, pulse of light is a 1. And we can do amazing things with that. These computers are flipping bits. They're changing our lives in all sorts of ways, positive and negative. I'm sorry, Michael, but I have my computer's a Microsoft free zone. Sorry. But this is not the first information processing revolution. If you go back, you find that the printed word, hundreds of years ago, was an extremely amazing information processing revolution, which really changed our society, changed all of human life. Before that, books were very precious commodities. Then they could be spread all over the place. This is the beginning of the gospel according to John. And this really made a huge difference for human beings, much larger, actually, frankly, than so far than iPhones have or even computers. And if you actually go further back, you see that, in fact, just writing itself, the fact that you could take verbal language and encode it in marks on, on a piece of paper, or before that, on little marks on clay tablets. By the way, do people know what were the first writings that we have in human civilization? Well, no, they're little pieces of clay tablets that people found in Mesopotamia. And what we recorded there? This is Washington. Business. Keep on going. Taxes, tax records. Yes, they had records of people's ownings in terms of sheep. 7 sheep, of which one belongs to the government, right? So. So, you can't really have like a large empire or something like that unless you have writing, maybe taxes as well, okay? I think it's kind of important. That's why I normally come down to this says, en arche en ho logos. This is the original beginning of the gospel according to John. But if you go further back, is writing really that amazing thing? Go further back and you see that speaking, just the fact that I can communicate to you by talking and having sound waves go through the air, get into your ears and into your brains, and you understand. Actually, I see people are nodding at me, which indicates either understanding or maybe not. As a professor of mechanical engineering, I need feedback, right? So like without feedback, I'll just go crazy. Yeah, I need feedback. Thank you. That's the kind of feedback I need. Maybe I can put this right here and get real. Well, no, it's okay. Exactly. So now, human language is an unbelievable development. We know of nothing like it out there. If we look at the languages in the form of communications of birds or even whales and dolphins, it's not clear that they possess this universal character of human language, where you can say anything in one language or in another language. This, by the way, is a deep truth about computers as well. You can have a program that runs in Microsoft on a Mac or on a PC. It's the same feature, this universality of human language. We've gifted this universality to computers. This is an amazing invention or information processing revolution. And you can imagine that the other animals and things out there are kind of pissed off at us for doing this, because it's really kind of the secret of human domination over the world, and also eventually of things like taxes. No, but come on, human language, that's an amazing information processing revolution. But if you go further back, you say, what causes language? This, by the way, is my picture of a brain. It has kind of like Keith Haring-like sort of things, indicating that it's like vibrating and alive, all sorts of stuff is going on in there. So the brain is an amazing information processing revolution. How could it be that just these cells, neural cells sitting together, firing signals back and forth, can construct thoughts and perceptions and allow creatures to move rapidly or one place or another and, produce things like, I don't know, Twitter. So that's a remarkable information processing revolution. We're now going back hundreds and hundreds of millions of years into the past. But is that the end? No, I would claim, if you go back further, well, this is, what is this picture? Yes, this is my Microsoft PowerPoint version of sex, right? This is the egg. We have an egg with little sperms. They also have kind of Keith Haring-like things, indicating that the egg is apparently, I don't know, happy or alive, and sperm as well. Sex is actually about information processing. Sex is about taking DNA, which is life's mechanism of storing information, genetic code, and then scrambling it up in a way that allows many more combinations to be developed very rapidly. Actually, this is also relevant to questions of disease and inheritability of disease, because there's speculation that sex may have evolved, that the benefit of it is not just like genetic recombination, but because you have 2 copies of each of your chromosomes, then it actually gives you resistance against disease. If one is not working, then another may, okay? Now, sex, well, that's one of my favorite information processing revolutions. But of course, as you can see where we're going, it's not, the earliest one. If we go back a billion years or several billion years in time, we get to the grandmother of all information processing revolutions, life itself. This is my picture of life with like DNA and things up in there. The human cell is largely about information processing. I was thinking of this when Dr. Lazarus was talking about diabetes. What's going on inside the human cell, or any cell, living cell, is a complicated dance between information, signaling pathways, RNA and DNA, and energy. How the information tells the energy where to go and what to do, and then the energy supplies the oomph to process more information. Right? When I first started studying physics, I was informed that the unit of energy was the calorie. I thought, oh, this is awesome. Calories, energy, good. More calories, good. This, of course, is why diabetes is kind of a problem. Right? So So I learned later, when I hit the age of 30, that this wasn't such a good idea. And also when I started eating dessert this evening. So this would seem like now we're really at the beginning of information processing revolutions. But I claim that that's not all. Because in fact, if you go back to the Big Bang itself, a huge explosion that happened 13.8 billion years ago, about 10 years ago, I woke up one morning, I found previously the universe had been somewhere between 10 and 50 billion years old, and then that morning it turned out it was 13.8 billion years old, which is a remarkable thing, how this can happen. The Big Bang itself, actually I claim, was the original information processing revolution. It was full of energy, it was full of information, it was full of bits flipping, because in fact, every elementary particle that's out there, every atom or proton registers bits of information. Like something spinning this way could be a 0, something spinning that way could be a 1, a photon that's coming in like that could be a 0, photon coming in the other way could be a 1. And every time that those bits, those particles collide with each other, bits are flipping. So actually, at its most fundamental and basic level, the universe is computing. So every elementary particle, everything that's out there is full of not only of energy, but of information. And as things happen, information is processed. So in my own work, I mean, this is something that was kind of known for a long time, but not really made explicit. My own work in building quantum computers essentially consists of taking these elementary particles, taking these photons, and building computers out of them, where you store bits at the level of individual atoms. And in fact, but you see that what we're doing when we build these quantum computers, we're not actually building new things. What we're effectively doing, and one thing that we've discovered is that because of this fundamental information processing characteristic of nature, pretty much anything is going to compute for you if you just ask it really nicely, right? If you shine light on it the right way, this picture commemorates the time that a colleague of mine, Neil Gershenfeld at MIT, made a bunch of caffeine compute, which seemed like a good idea. I was at a wedding a few years ago, and I was describing what I was doing, and I was sitting, what I worked on, to a table of political scientists. Barbara Ehrenreich was one of these people, and they asked me what I did, and I said, oh, well, we take the intrinsic information processing capacity of the universe and we exploit this to make atoms compute. And they're, oh my God, that's so politically incorrect. Exploiting atoms. And actually, afterwards, one of the guests, an activist from Greensboro, came up and put his arm around my shoulder and he said, Seth, the next time you tell somebody what you do, I suggest that rather saying you exploit atoms, you empower them to compute. It was it was a transitional moment in my life. I went in just a microsecond from being an exploiter of atoms to being an empowerer of atoms. So we empower atoms to compute, and effectively what we're doing is we're using the fact that the whole universe computes. And when we build these quantum computers, we are effectively hacking in to the existing computation in the universe and persuading or empowering these atoms and elementary particles to do different kinds of computations from the ones that they would ordinarily be doing. Okay, so now this actually, in fact, what is the use of this? Why am I telling you? Well, Gary invited me, but I said yes. But I'm telling you because we can actually learn a lot from this. We can learn not only how to, build quantum computers with things that would make, agencies with 3 letters in their names, of which there are a lot down here in Washington. I notice, to either tremble in their boots because their codes would be broken or allow them to break other people's codes. I claim that we can actually understand something very basic about the universe by understanding how it computes, how it's computing at the most microscopic levels. Okay. So to do this, okay, now this is going to be very brief. We're not really, it's not late enough in the evening, and people have not had enough wine for me really to tell you about quantum mechanics. But I'm going to tell you very briefly about a very brief course in quantum mechanics, and it will be over soon, and the exam will be painless, I swear. So quantum mechanics is the branch of physics that describes how everything behaves at their most microscopic level. Like it describes how atoms behave, how photons behave, it describes how the molecules in our bodies behave, it underlies chemistry, biology, etc. Now, one of the funky features of quantum mechanics is that it's weird. This is a technical term. It's hard to understand. It's funky. You know, it's the James Brown of physical sciences. So I was at a James Brown concert, and you know, when people said, "What are you going to play next, James?" And he said, "I don't know, but whatever it is, it's got to be funky." Maybe some of you were at the same concert, and it was funky. So quantum mechanics is like that. And it's hard to understand. And one of the features that comes of it is what's called wave-particle duality. Sounds weird. What does this mean? It means that things that we think of as waves, like light or sound, actually consist of particles. So light is made out of a little particle called photons. That means, you know, light thing in ancient Greek. And sound is made up of phonons. It means sound thing, again, in ancient Greek. If there were a particle of love, it would be like the amaron or something like that. So, and similarly, things like electrons, atoms, or basketballs, they actually have these waves that are associated with them. Now, we don't normally see this in macroscopic level, but what do these waves do? They like tell us where particles are. So the wave over here says, oh, okay, the electron is over here, or the basketball is over here. Wave over here says, electron is over here, basketball is over there. But then there's this funky feature about quantum mechanics that these waves, like ordinary water waves, aren't in just one place at one time. They can be effectively everywhere at once, and particularly they can be in two places at once. So here I've drawn a picture of a wave corresponding to a single electron, where the electron is both here and there at the same time. You know, this doesn't have any real correspondence in ordinary life. I mean, even when Michael Jordan was active, the basketball was in one place, right? It wasn't in both places at the same time. But what this means for quantum bits or quantum information, if we say electron over here is 0, electron over there is 1, it means that this bit is 0 and 1 at the same time. Now, don't ask me how that is, because I don't understand it. Like, it's counterintuitive, it's strange, it's funky. I mean, many famous physicists, starting with Einstein, didn't understand this and didn't like it. Einstein got his Nobel Prize for quantum mechanics, and I could give the names, but I won't, out of deference to them, because they're still alive, of Nobel laureates who don't believe in quantum mechanics to this day. Okay? Now, what does this mean? What it means is if you measure, and a famous example of that is this example of Schrödinger's cat, where the cat is supposedly alive and dead at the same time. And this picture actually reminds me a little bit of Schrödinger's cat. It's sort of like a spectral cat here. So if you measure and say, are you here or are you there, then what happens is you either find the electron here or the electron there. It's a probabilistic event. It could happen this way or could happen that way. Now, this actually applies not just to the level of, you know, little quantum bits or atoms, it actually applies to the universe as a whole. For example, if we actually want to say why it is that our galaxy is here, rather than 100 million light years off in that direction, because way back, 13.8 billion years ago, there was a little tiny wave here that was here and there at the same time, a little overdensity of matter here and there at the same time, and particles began to cluster over here and there simultaneously, and then galaxies began to form. And what happens is, actually in a quantum mechanical case, our galaxy is effectively both here and there simultaneously. But we got the here part, so we're here, at least last time I checked. Okay, so what does this mean for the universe? It means that things like the positions of galaxies, the chemical composition of the sun, if you go down to the genetic differences between you and your sibling, even if you're an identical twin, or the random electrical fluctuations of your neurons in your brain, these all arise from these quantum mechanics. So effectively, these little quantum fluctuations are injecting bits of information into the universe all the time. There are new fresh bits of information being injected, which then get processed by the ongoing computation which is going on in the universe. Okay, so that's a different picture from the ordinary one that physicists have, but it's just as valid as the ordinary one where the universe consists of energy, chemicals, etc. What do we get from this? How can random bits processed by natural dynamics of the computing universe give rise to things like order, complexity, beauty, and chaos? And by the latter, I mean both like the mathematical features of chaos and our current political system. But, well, it's not that bad. Actually, science is just as bad. So how can this happen? I mean, how could we take a universe that's completely uniform to begin with, and then it gets programmed with little random fluctuations? How can that possibly give us something that's so complex as what we see around us? So I claim that actually, if we understand how the universe computes, we can actually understand how complexity is generated in the universe. And the way to think of this is in terms of a famous metaphor about monkeys typing into typewriters. So you have a bunch of monkeys, you train them to type into typewriters, they're typing and typing and typing away, and they type a bunch of random garbage. Now, in fact, if you get enough monkeys and you have them type for long enough, they will start to type out things that are recognizable. Here they've typed out, you know, the first 17 characters of Hamlet's soliloquy, to be or not to be. Now, that's not a good explanation for why things are complicated, because the next thing that the monkeys are going to type out is going to be just complete garbage, complete gibberish. So it doesn't tell you anything about this. However, if you take those same monkeys and you have them type into computers, so rather than just typing random characters into say, Microsoft Word or something like that, they're now typing random characters into PowerPoint or some other such program. Then actually these bits of information are interpreted and processed. And you can ask, what then happens? Well, actually, a bunch of people at the University of Nottingham did this experiment. They actually got some monkeys, some macaques, and they gave them a bunch of computers. And first they covered them with plastic, because in fact, it turns out that the first thing that a monkey wants to do with a computer is to claim it for its own by peeing on it. But then, after a while, they started typing away. The researchers said it turned out the monkeys had a real fondness for the letter S. But now something quite remarkable happens. Actually, not in the original experiment. I think in the original experiment with the monkeys, all that happened is they had to clean up a lot of computers after it was done. But if you take a computer and you start programming it at random, there are short, random-looking programs that will instruct the computer to start doing all kinds of complicated things. So, for instance, you could say type in to be or not to be, but you could also type in something which accidentally, with just a few bits of program, starts out printing out all the digits of pi. Or like starts making models of spiral galaxies, or starts telling you how quantum mechanics behaves, or starts adding numbers, or starts creating more and more complicated things. Like, again, I'm sorry to pick on Microsoft like this. Lapidary computer programs that keep on going. I know it's a cheap shot, I'm sorry. It's just because I got to eat dinner with you, so I feel I can give you a hard time. So there's a very big difference between typing into a computer and typing into a typewriter. Because if the information is interpreted and processed, that means that even though the information you're putting in itself looks almost entirely random, you can get arbitrarily complicated structures arising. And in fact, if you look at the history of our universe and this history of these information processing revolutions, then it actually is what happened. Things started very random. Tiny little, overdensities of matter made our galaxy appear here. We actually don't know how life began, because for some bizarre reason, we know less about the origins of life than we know about the origins of the universe. Go figure. But once life started going on and reproducing, then little tiny mutations, accidental mutations, gradually caused natural selection to occur. And then things like human beings arose, and all these little tiny random ways that the universe gets hit actually result in very, very complicated structures, including those that we see around us. So let me just conclude by saying, okay, what did we talk about? We talked about how information fits in the universe. The universe is really a kind of like the cell itself. The universe as a whole is a complex dance between information and energy. And this dance between information and energy is effectively a computation. Now, if you have something that's out there computing, and the universe is actually a computer, I mean, in the mathematical sense of the word, then you shouldn't actually be surprised if the universe exhibits all kind of complexity? Because that's in the nature of the thing itself. Just as human beings, when they get together and start interacting in seemingly random ways, can come up with all kinds of fantastic ideas, and we heard a lot this evening about what they eventually turn into. They start, 35 years ago on something very small, and then you keep on going, and all kinds of unexpected things happen, and then 35 years later, you've done amazing things in the world, as you guys have. By the way, the best part of this evening for me was getting to shake Congresswoman Christensen's hand, which So, but we can actually understand how this complexity arises by looking at the universe at its most microscopic ways, realizing how it computes, and then we see that these quantum fluctuations, these little accidents, processed by gravity and chaos, personal chaos, political chaos, dynamical chaos, give rise to the order and the complexity that we see around us. So quantum mechanics and this quantum computation that is going on around us programs the universe, and the result is all this beautiful, amazing world that we see around us. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Very animated. I'll bet you didn't know I was a Sunday school teacher. 6- and 7-year-olds. Think about it. Okay, at this point, I'd like to bring up Mr. Charles Jones, Vice President of the Heart of Rhythm Society, to introduce our next speaker.
I'm good with this. I'm still stuck on the monkeys typing and urinating. Anyone else? I was trying to make sense of it, but quantum mechanics, not my thing. All right. Well, good evening. Treating millions of patients each year, our members see firsthand the inequities that exist in healthcare, and in particular, the racial disparities in the prevention and treatment of sudden cardiac arrest, or SCA. To address those disparities, the Heart Rhythm Society, in collaboration with the Association of Black Cardiologists, developed a national campaign entitled Arrest the Risk, designed to inform and educate African Americans about the risks of SCA. In selecting a campaign spokesperson, we looked for someone not only with strong ties to the African American community, but someone who felt passionately about educating the public on heart disease. In Shaun Robinson, we found those things and so much more. You may know her as the Emmy Award-winning journalist and weekend co-anchor and correspondent for Access Hollywood, but Shaun is also an accomplished author, entrepreneur, and philanthropist. She has graced our campaign with her endless enthusiasm, commitment, and talent, and most importantly, has helped to shed light on the risk of sudden cardiac arrest for millions of people. If you could please show the video.
Every year in the U.S., more than 350,000 hearts suddenly and unexpectedly stop. But they didn't have to. Early intervention could have saved their lives. I'm Shaun Robinson. Given my family's history with heart disease, I'm here to shed light on sudden cardiac arrest, a condition we need to stop. SCA is deadly and can happen to anyone, but chances are greater in African Americans. Most high-risk patients do not receive recommended treatments. Over 60% of African Americans think they don't need to go to the doctor after experiencing heart disease symptoms. It's time to arrest your risk. Talk to your doctor. Stop SCA before it stops you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my friend, Shaun Robinson.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Charlie. Good evening, everyone. How are you this evening? Doing good? It is very good to be with you here tonight. I want to thank the National Minority Equality Forum and the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation for having me here this evening. The good old days. Detroit, Michigan. School's out for the summer. Me and Pookie and them just finished a game of hopscotch. When we ran out of chalk, we easily just shifted to tag. Pookie was always it because he really couldn't run that fast. Man, I'm tired. Papa sitting in his recliner, listening to Ernie Harwell's play-by-play of the Detroit Tigers baseball game on the radio. Cool summer breeze. I put my face against the grill of the electric fan in the window. Girl, don't you go putting your fingers near that fan, Grandma shouted from the kitchen. I go back and lay on the blanket on the floor next to my Etch-a-Sketch. In front of our one TV, the black and white one, the one with 4 VHF and 1 UHF station. You know, the one with the clothes hanger on top with the antenna that Popeye had to put on when the antenna broke. You know what I'm talking about. I'm watching my favorite TV shows. No, not The Real Housewives, not American Idol. I'm talking Speed Racer, The Munsters, Lost in Space, and Kimber the White Lion. Yes. Wash your hands, Grandma said. Dinner's ready. Ooh, I could smell that meatloaf sizzling when it came out the oven. Grandma had coated the pan with a big old scoop of Crisco. You know, she needed an extra large tub because she made fried chicken yesterday. Rice with all that thick, creamy gravy, collard greens and ham hocks, candy yams, lots of butter. Ooh, I was hungry. It had been hours since I had eaten my lunch, pork and beans. Grandma had 2 stoves, the one upstairs in the kitchen and the one downstairs in the basement. That one she used to cook a big old pot of Popeye's chitlins. I had to run in the bedroom and put the covers over my head because I hated that smell. Ew, Popeye, ugh. Sure to hand me the Tabasco sauce, Popeye would say. After dinner, I had ice cream with Werner's ginger ale. Papa sat on the back porch smoking his Winston cigarettes king size, his last one of his 2 packs that day. Grandma wouldn't let him smoke inside and would leave smell in the curtains, you know. Those good old days. I remember everything that my little 6-year-old mind could absorb, everything about my papa and my grandma, how they looked, how they felt, how they smelled. And the little tiny bottle of pills around Grandma's neck. That's Grandma's heart medicine, baby. She would tell me as I sat on her lap. Grandma got those pills after her heart attack. My phone rang. Girl, I brought you some special seasons from my trip to New Orleans. Ooh, Sonia could cook her butt off. I was a reporter in Wisconsin, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I had just moved there, starting my career. Sonia lived on the 3rd floor of my 3-story apartment building. Sometimes she'd bring me food that she cooked for dinner because she knew I worked these crazy hours because she knew I was always hungry and didn't have much money to buy nothing. Now, since it was the fast food she ate on the regular, sometimes she'd bring me a box of Kentucky Fried Chicken, you know. She'd come down and we had these long girl talks late at night talking about boys. You know, she was so cool, so pretty, beautiful, cocoa skin. Girl, I'm trying to lose some of this weight, she'd say. It was always so wonderful to have a girlfriend to bond with. I came home from work that day. That day. There was an ambulance in front of my building. I didn't know at the time who they were carrying out on the stretcher because the blanket had covered the entire body. Sonia was only 32. The seasonings were still on my kitchen counter right where she set it. Play that funky music. Oh man, the music was blasting. Everybody was on the dance floor. Happy birthday, sis. Michael, what's up? You came. Baby, I wouldn't miss your birthday party for the world. When I saw my friend Michael Clark Duncan, I knew the party was gonna be on and popping. He was with his girlfriend, Omarosa. He was vibrant as always. His big booming voice to match that big personality just lit up the room. He was so happy. He had met the love of his life, and he was telling me about some movie and television projects he was really excited about. Everyone wanted to take a picture with him, and he accommodated everybody. Birthday girl first, Michael, come on over here. We partied all night long. Next time I saw Michael, he lay in his casket. How? Why? This can't be happening. I'd helped my friend Omarosa with the program. One of the many pictures on that program was from my birthday party. How? Why? Michael, Sonia, Grandma. Just 3 of the reasons why I am the national spokesperson for the Heart Rhythm Society's Arrest the Risk campaign, designed to increase awareness of sudden cardiac arrest among African Americans and overcome barriers to diagnosis and treatment. Sudden cardiac arrest, lights out, bye-bye. 350,000 Americans each year gone. Many of them African Americans. Michael, Sonia. And if there is a family history of heart disease, Grandma, we are at an increased risk for SCA. We are not having conversations with our doctors. We are not going in armed with information. We are not asking questions. We are not getting referrals when needed. We are not taking control of our lives. Ma, what did the doctor say when you went for your annual checkup yesterday? Girl, he said I need to do something. I don't know, he said something. We are not telling our doctors that Cousin Judy and Uncle Jim weren't at the family reunion this year. The Heart Rhythm Society research found that 90% of African Americans say their doctor has never talked to them about their risk of sudden cardiac arrest. And more than 60% of us don't go to the doctor after experiencing heart disease symptoms. Now, I will take a pair of shoes back real quick if there's something wrong with them. This heel, sir, has some symptoms going on here. The sudden and unpredictable nature of SCA, Michael, Sonia, makes it critically important that we learn about this condition and get the information about our risk in advance. Have you had a heart attack? Do you have high blood pressure? Do you have uncontrolled heart rhythm disorder? I'm going to give you some information on how we can prevent sudden cardiac arrest, SCA. Become a reporter. Now, how did Grandpa die? What exactly was going, what? Okay, and what about Uncle Ray? What happened to him? Oh, and Cousin Mabel? Really? Start a conversation with your doctor. They are a physician, not a mind reader. Tell him or her about your family history. Tell them about your symptoms. Press for a referral for a specialist if you are at an increased risk. Be an advocate for your family members. Hello, doctor's office? Yeah, I'm calling about my mother. Yes, I have called before. She had her annual physical yesterday. I needed to talk to her doctor about what exactly he told you. I know, yes, ma'am, I know the doctor is really busy, but it's my mother. Yes, thank you very much. I will call the doctor at 4:15. Thank you very much. ArrestTheRisk.org. Please make sure you write that down. ArrestTheRisk.org. It will give you valuable information about understanding and preventing SCA. ArrestTheRisk.org. Find out about the risk factors of yours and those of the people you love. It can help you determine if you need a specialist and ways to reduce your risk. I live in LA. where for some people lettuce is a meal. Not for me. I still love that comfort food. It makes me think of my grandma, but we know we have to do it in moderation. I now get up at 5:30 in the morning to work out. That works for my lifestyle. You may be different. If I wait to do it after work, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. And from work, I drive right past the gym on my way home. Or I might have an interview to do, maybe with Denzel or Honey Boo Boo. Just kidding, I wouldn't interview her. I'm sure she's a nice kid, but ooh, if I ever, my grandmother would have. I miss my grandmother, I miss Sonia, and I miss Michael. But working together, we can stop SCA before it stops the people we love. Thank you very much.
I'm going to ask the members of Congress if they will come up. Congresswoman Christensen and the other members, please. Congressman Butterfield, and please. Congressman Davis. If you want to.
And we have one more on the way, and some who have left. Let me introduce the members of Congress who are here with us this evening. I would say that Congressman Rangel, one of the founding members of the Congressional Black Caucus, was here, and I think he's left. Congressman Conyers, who's the second longest serving member in the House, was with us as well. Now, let's see if I can get the seniority right. Okay, well, we have Congressman Bobby Scott, who is from the 3rd District of Virginia. Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, the 18th District of Texas. Congressman Danny Davis from Illinois, the 7th District of Illinois. Congresswoman Barbara Lee, Oakland, California. I'm going to leave my chair lady for last. Congressman Hank Johnson, 4th District of Georgia. Congresswoman Joyce Beatty, the 3rd District of Ohio, one of our newer members. And our very newest member, just about 2 weeks into the Congress, Congresswoman Robin Kelly of the 2nd District of Illinois. Did I get everybody? Except Congressman Butterfield, who you'll hear from, North Carolina, and our chair lady, Marcia Fudge of Ohio. We're also about to be joined by Congressman Donald Payne, Jr. Now, we're all up here to honor one of our own. And it is really an honor for me to introduce to you our next honoree, Congresswoman Gwen Moore of the 4th District of Wisconsin. And we're so lucky to have her as one of our members and to have her as a dear friend. And she is the recipient of the 2013 Mary Eliza Mahoney Award. The description of the award is in your program, but it's worth mentioning because so much of what made Mary Eliza Mahoney so exceptional in the 1800s is exactly some of the things that make Congresswoman Gwen Moore equally as exceptional today. Her steadfast, unwavering, and uncompromising dedication to expanding access to quality health care and to all of the programs that help families to grow and to thrive, and her commitment to all of vulnerable populations. Her bio sketch is in your dinner program, and you can see that she's accomplished quite a lot since she's come to Congress. She's a member of the House Committee on Financial Services, as well as the House Budget Committee, where she's a strong member. on both committees and of the Democratic Steering and Policy Committee. She's a leader in many areas, also on the issue of domestic violence, where she's got some of the most far-reaching, insightful legislation to deal with domestic violence. I want to take a moment to share some of what's not in her bio sketch. Congresswoman Gwen Moore, the daughter of a factory worker father and a public school teacher mother, and the sister to 8 siblings, one of whom is in the back making all that noise. There she is. Is someone who does know what struggle means. She knows what it feels like to be marginalized and stigmatized. However, my good friend and tonight's honoree also knows what it means to persevere. She knows what it means to never accept mediocrity, what it means to set a goal and achieve it. And thankfully for all of us, she knows the value of always remembering where you came from, remembering what you've lived through, and leveraging your position and your influence to make tomorrow better for everyone than her own yesterday was. So it's with great pleasure and pride that all of us stand here on the stage to honor our colleague and friend, Congresswoman Gwen Moore.
My speech is only 45 minutes long, so. I do want to thank the other honoree, Dr. Davidson, who's received a very prestigious award this evening for his epic work on ameliorating diabetes among Hispanics. And which really leads me to the following point. There is no one, I want the National Minority Quality Health Forum and the CBC Health Braintrust and the foundation know that there is no one who has really sown the seeds of healthcare reform more than Dr. Donna Christensen. At whatever point we can get the Congressional Budget Office and Congress to score the benefits of preventive care and eliminating disparities, we will have nabbed really half of the healthcare cost problems. You know, I'm thinking of a nephew of mine who has diabetes, and he is now at this moment terrified as he faces an amputation, a below-the-knee amputation of his leg, a diabetic. Someone who worked in the telemarketing field, had no health care, person who was a vegetarian, never drank an ounce of alcohol in his life, never smoked a cigarette, never used street drugs, but was poor and had no health care. And you know, it wasn't until he stumbled into an emergency room and they said, "Excuse me, sir, but we're going to have to dialyze you," that he got, all of a sudden he was eligible for Medicaid and Medicare and everything else. You know, that is not a good healthcare system. If we had given him some insulin, Dr. Christensen, and some high blood pressure medication, we could have saved billions of dollars. With respect to winning this award, I cannot think of an award I've ever received that I will cherish more than this. You know, I knew who Mary Eliza Mahoney was growing up. Someone who was a servant of people. And in my experience, that no matter what else you achieve in life, if you don't have basic health, you have absolutely nothing. And for someone to humble themselves, especially with the wages that they give healthcare workers these days, people who just empty bedpans and sit by your side while you're sweating with fever, I can't think of any award that I will cherish more. Thank you so much for this honor tonight.
And so we want to have a few words from a couple of our colleagues, beginning with Congressman G.K. Butterfield, the judge from North Carolina, my good friend, my neighbor. Come on, G.K. And then we'll hear from our chairwoman, Congresswoman Marcia Fudge.
Good evening. There is no member of the Congressional Black Caucus more deserving of that award than Gwen Moore, and so I want to thank you so very much. Thank you so very much for bestowing that honor on my colleague. Let me say good evening to all of you. I am the Congressman for the 1st Congressional District of North Carolina. For those of you who know anything about North Carolina, you will know that the 1st District is in the eastern part of our state. My district is the 4th poorest district in the United States of America, and so my work is so vitally important. I serve on the Energy and Commerce Committee in the House of Representatives, and as such, I, along with Donna Christensen and others, helped craft the Affordable Care Act, and I am so very proud of that legislation. I'm going to take the 2 minutes that have been allotted to me this evening to just say a word or two about the Affordable Care Act. As all of you know, during the 2008 presidential election cycle, Senator Barack Obama campaigned on the platform of affordable health care reform, something every president over the last 50 years had tried, and all of them had failed. But Senator Obama told the nation that if he was elected as president, that he would try to offer legislation that would make sure that the 50 million uninsured Americans will have access to health insurance. As we all know, Senator Obama became President Obama, and the second piece of legislation that he offered to the Congress was health care reform. We had to do the stimulus bill first, and all of you remember that so well. But the second thing we did was health care reform. The President told us that there's no reason why we should have 50 million Americans uninsured. We only have 300 million Americans, and to have 50 million of those, 1 out of 6, uninsured is unacceptable. And so we debated health care reform for 1 year. Finally, we passed that historic legislation, and I'm proud to say to you that even though it's being phased in incrementally, the bulk of health care reform will become effective on January 1st of 2014. And we need your help. We need your help in making sure that every American understands what it is and what their responsibilities are. You must understand that every American is required to have health insurance. There are no exceptions. Every American must have health insurance. If they are low income, they should qualify for Medicaid. If they are high income, they will have to pay the premiums on their own. But if they are in that mid-range, from 133% of poverty to 400% of poverty, they will have to go into the health exchange, and we as a government will help them subsidize their premium. It's a new day in America. We've got to make sure that all of our citizens understand that. The tragedy in all of this, ladies and gentlemen, the tragedy is that we told the states that they had to expand their Medicaid program to make health care available to low-income individuals. In most states, families qualify for Medicaid, low-income families, blind and disabled individuals do, but single individuals, many of whom I represent and many of you know so well, single individuals do not have access to Medicaid. And under health care reform, under the Affordable Care Act, we expanded the Medicaid provision to make health care accessible to single adults, what we call single childless adults. We told the states that if you don't insure this population of the uninsured, that we reserve the right to deprive you of your entire Medicaid program. Unfortunately, the U.S. Supreme Court struck down that provision of our law, upholding every other provision of the law, but struck down that provision, and now the states have the option. They have the option of expanding their Medicaid program to include childless adults. Most of the states that now have Republican legislatures and governors are beginning to decline the right to expand the Medicaid program, and that is so disappointing to us, because we will pay 100% of the cost of Medicaid expansion through the year 2016. And after 2016, we will pay up to 90% of the cost of the program. But many of our states have declined to expand their Medicaid program. And so we have a handicap. And so I want to enlist your support in going back to your communities to make sure that we continue to advocate for the low-income, uninsured population, and to make sure that all of those who do qualify for insurance get enrolled in the health exchange starting on January 1st. We're going to open it up on October 1st, but the insured date will be, the effective date will be January 1st. Again, thank you for all that you do in your communities. Thank you, sponsors, for making this type of event happen. Thank all of my colleagues who have come forward tonight who work so hard every day to make America a better place to live and to work. Thank you. May God bless all of you.
Thank you. Thank you, GK. GK is also the Chief Deputy Whip in the Democratic leadership and our first Vice Chair of the Congressional Black Caucus. And now I'd like to bring up our Chairwoman, Congresswoman Marcia Fudge, who represents Ohio's 11th District. And you heard from one of her predecessors, and our distinguished Chair Emeritus of the Health Braintrust, Congressman Lou Stokes. She serves in the district that he represented. She was a mayor, the first female mayor of Warrensville Heights. Many of you know her as a past national president of Delta Sigma Theta sorority, but now she is our chair lady, and help me welcome her to the podium to give remarks.
Thank you very much, and good evening to you all. Congressman, always a pleasure to see you. Thank you for being here. I want to thank and congratulate the National Minority Equality Forum, the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation, and the Foundation Health Braintrust, but most importantly, to be here to congratulate and thank our friend and our member, Dr. Donna Christensen, who is our go-to person no matter what it is. If it has to do anything with health care, even people say, you know, Donna, I don't feel good today. That's just anything. Anything. Donna is our person. There's no doctor like Dr. Donna anywhere. I want to thank her for her work. She has really been the person who has made this Braintrust work. I thank you very much. And I just want to say that, Lord willing, and the creek don't rise, we'll see you next year.
Okay. We've also been joined, as I told you, we would have been joined shortly by Congressman Donald Payne Jr. Donald, stand up and let the folks see who you are. Another new member. How many are we? 43 strong? 43? 43 strong members of the Congressional Black Caucus. 42 in the House and 1 in the Senate. Thank you all. Gary, I'll turn it back over to you.
Don't leave, because we're going to. So we're going to come to the close of our evening. I'm going to say a few words and then ask the Congresswoman to finish this up. I first want to thank you. We put up the slides of our sponsors because, quite honestly, Gary Puckman can't do this or pay for this on his own, and I want to thank our sponsors. Many of them have been doing sequester, they've been doing cuts, they've been doing this and that, and they've supported us in this, and we appreciate deeply their contribution and allow us to have this event. So I want to make sure that you recognize them for what they've done for us. I also want to thank my staff. It looks like I do this, but I have no capacity to do this whatsoever. I am actually a quantum computer, and my staff programs me, and I wander about by accident, and here I am. And
Are you here? Are you here and there?
I'm both here and there. Gretchen Wortman, if she's here, and Margot Payne and Bill Griffith. I really thank you so much. Jeff Berry for making me both here and there. I also want to take a moment to thank my wife. I am actually a really strange character, as you probably know by now, and my wife puts up with me. I'm not exactly sure why she does that, But I am appreciative, very, very deeply appreciative. Otherwise, I'd be living by myself, both here and there. So I thank you deeply. I also want to say once again a thank you to Congresswoman Christensen. This has been a really profound journey. I'm not a doctor. I sort of wandered into healthcare by accident and learned a lot about healthcare, and a lot of it watching Congresswoman Christensen sort of try to navigate a very cantankerous American healthcare system to persuade it that it needed to provide healthcare to all of its people. I don't understand the controversy about that. I'm sure others can explain it to me very, very deeply, and maybe I'd get it, but I don't. But what I appreciate is the patience, the endless patience to try to persuade a system that every American ought to have the capacity to live, that all of us should take the opportunity to make sure that our neighbors don't needlessly die, that they don't have their legs cut off, that they don't go blind, that their children don't suffer from diseases that they don't have to suffer from. I thought that's what communities do. I thought that's a sort of natural instinct of a community, but apparently not. And so I've sat in town hall meetings where Congresswoman Christensen sat for 7 and 8 hours listening to community people when I would poke both of my eyes out if I had to do that. But what I found most interesting at the end of the session, she summarized with precision what the people were asking for, with precision. I was amazed at the patience of that. And so I've learned a lot personally over the years watching her take us through this process. When I heard people say, she's never going to accomplish that. I don't know why she keeps putting that bill in there. It's not going anywhere. But every year she would move that bill forward, and slowly in the legislation that you live by, that your kids, your family have access to, is what she was doing with tremendous patience. So it's been a personal honor and pleasure to learn, to see how this process works. And finally, I want to thank you for coming out and sharing one of the other lessons that I've learned about democracy. Democracy is about the pursuit of interest, that if you don't raise your voice, that if you don't press your interest, then you're not heard. Muhammad Akhtar at NMA once told me, you get the health care that you deserve by what you advocate for. And so I thank you for coming out and expressing your opinions and helping to inform the process. It is not a useless exercise, that information gets carried forward and through the members of the caucus who are sitting here, through the other members of Congress, that information gets translated, and your neighbors and your family and this country gets the health care that it deserves. So I want to thank you so much. God bless.
I don't know what I can add to that, but let me just also say that it has been really an honor and a privilege for us to work with Gary and the National Minority Quality Forum. While Gary may not know the ins and outs of delivering health care, he knows how to get the data that we need to justify what we're asking for. So we've worked together on a lot of issues. I mentioned some of them yesterday against bundling, on making sure that end-stage renal disease patients got their medication. But we also work with some of those maps. And when you go to a Ways and Means Committee meeting to testify, and you can put up the chairman's map and show him where the poverty levels are high and the exact same places that the end-stage renal disease is so prevalent, it really makes an impact. So we're a team. And that teamwork has done a lot to get us where we are. And I couldn't be honored this evening we could not have achieved a lot of what we have achieved without your partnership. So we thank you, and we thank all of the sponsors who have been our partners through the years and who were our partners for these 2 days and this evening. I know I want to thank my members of the Congressional Black Caucus, those who are here and those who are not here, because as I said earlier, there is no way that I could do all that I have been able to do without them. They have been the wind beneath my wings. They have been my strong partners and supporters. They have been helping to guide me when I wasn't sure which way to go. So thank you to my chair lady, my former chairpersons, and all of the members of the Congressional Black Caucus. Please give them another round of applause. And when things get tough and we need somebody to have our back, and you get our emails and we tell you, call, they're getting ready to do something to the Offices of Minority Health, or call and write, we need some help to get that institute in place at NIH, or call, we need more money for children's health insurance, you all have responded. We call, we need more money for the Minority AIDS Initiative. You have responded. And because you have responded, we've been successful. So thank you for that. Many of you have been with us for these 2 days, and it's been an amazing 2 days with lots of information, lots of dialogue, lots of exploring different ways to address common challenges. One thing that we know as we leave here is that with all we've accomplished, with the Affordable Care Act having been passed and many other accomplishments that we've talked about, that we still have so much work to do. And that work is urgent, as we only have the rest of this year and maybe another year on summit provisions to implement the Affordable Care Act and make sure that it's implemented correctly and in a way that our communities can really get all of the benefit that they deserve. We get the health care we deserve. We know what our communities deserve, but it's going to take all of us working together to make sure that our communities get the health care that they deserve. So thank you for all that you have done in the past. Thank you for all that you're going to do, and we look forward to seeing you again next year.